Okay, good morning, grade 9. So today we're gonna do the third objective. Yesterday we learned how to solve a supply function and then to construct a supply curve. So today we're gonna review the concepts of shifts versus movements. But since we already know the idea of movements, specifically we're gonna focus on reviewing shifts. Okay, so I want you to get a one piece of paper, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna practice drills and make sure that for each example that I show you, you are also doing the exercise or the item independently on your own. So once I discuss the question, I'm gonna give you some time to figure this out first, or you can also opt to pause the video if you want, and then afterwards you can play pause, and then I will give you the answer. And we will try to figure this out together. And so I'm going to move on to the first example. And I'm assuming you already have your pen and paper with you. So get ready and make sure that you stay focused for these 10 items that we are going to go through together. So first one, what happens to the supply of leather shoes if shoemakers suddenly lost all of their skills? Okay, so we can see here that meron tayong na-construct na supply curve. The original one is the black one. And then you have two types of shifts here. Shift to the right, which is A, the red supply curve, and then shift to the left. And then shift to the right, which is B. And then you have the red supply curve, which is the shift to the left. So for your answer, just put A or B. Okay, figure out what would best illustrate or the shift that happens to leather shoes if shoemakers suddenly lost all of their skills. Would it go to the supply curve A or would it go to supply curve B? Yan. Start thinking for your answers, and I'm gonna give you 10 seconds to do so. And after that, we're gonna discuss the item. Okay, so pause the video. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ayan. Okay, so dito, di ba nakikita natin, we're asked kung ano yung mangyayari sa supply ng leather shoes. And then we know that shoemakers, they are the ones which produce our shoes. Right? We have the assumption, syempre, kapag hindi na marunong mag-produce ng shoes yung shoemakers, obviously supply would go down, right? Would decrease. So in our supply curve, what shows decrease is a shift to the left, which means that the correct answer for this one should be letter A. It went to A. And you can do this by illustrating, or if you're gonna construct the graph on your own, aside from shifting the demand or the supply curve to the left, you can also use an arrow, such as what I'm constructing right now, to show the specific direction of the shift. So, pwede kayong gumawa ng ganito. And I want you to be comfortable with constructing your supply curves because this is something that you will do again and again and again. Ayan. Okay, sige. So, if you don't get this, it's totally fine. We still have some examples left to go. Okay, number 2. What would happen to the supply of carrots if a farmer decided to preserve the environment by farming in a more traditional manner instead of making more profits? Again, what would happen to the supply of carrots if a farmer decided to preserve the environment by farming in a more traditional manner instead of making more profits? Okay, so you're supposed to figure out the effect to supply of carrots for this particular change. Would it go to A, from the original demand curve, that is supply curve, that is black, or would it go to B? Okay, what would happen to the supply of carrots? Okay, so go ahead, figure this out. Pause the video. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ayan. We know that kapag gagawa or mas traditional yung manner ng farmer na ito, syempre yung mangyayari dyan is it would take him slower to produce carrots, right? If he's farming in the traditional manner. And at the same time, this also means that his output of production for carrots might decrease annually or whenever he tries to produce the carrots. Okay, so it means that if you have a decrease in the supply of carrots, this is shown as a shift to the left in the supply curve, which means that the correct answer for this one is A, right? So A. Ayan. Okay, from the original supply curve, we go on to A. Okay. Sige, so I hope you got this. We move on to the third item. Okay, so here we have this question. Based on the supply schedule or table, this is most probably a blank schedule or table. So first, look at the values here. You have your two variables, price and quantity of ice cream. Look at the relations between these two variables and try to figure out if this shows relationship between or shows supply or demand relationships. Okay, so pause the video. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so again, to answer this question, we just need to remember the law of demand and then the law of supply. If we're looking at the law of demand, or if this illustrates demand, there should be an inverse relationship, which means that if price increases, quantity demanded should decrease. So let's look at the example here. With a price of 15, your quantity is 70. With a price of 18, your quantity is 64. With a price of 20, your quantity is 60. 22, 56, 25 is 50. Right? So nakikita natin kapag tumataas yung presyo from 15 to 25, there's also a decrease in the quantity. Which means that the correct answer for this would probably be, this illustrates a demand schedule because it shows an inverse relationship between price and quantity. If it was supply, it would be the reverse. With increases in prices, there should be a corresponding increase in the quantities. Right? So if this is 15, 70, kapag 18, dapat tataas to kapag supply schedule ito. So again, the correct answer is that this should be a demand schedule. Hope you got this, guys. Ayan. Make sure that you're more flexible already or you know the ideas of demand and supply. And I see that a lot of you still get confused between your demand and supply schedules and demand and supply curves. So you just need to always remember yung balik kayo sa principles of law of demand and supply because that's the only thing that will help. Okay, heto. Tingnan natin. Let's try to label. So this is an identification type of question. You have two items here. Let's figure out if this shows demand or supply curves. And if it shows a shift to the right or shift to the left, and what do they mean? So I'm gonna give you 20 seconds to figure this out. Or pause the video again. You have two items here, number 4 and then number 5. And your job is to figure out if this is a supply curve or demand curve, and if it's shifting to the right or shifting to the left for each. Okay, so dalawa dapat yung answer dyan. Again, this is an identification type of question. Okay, go ahead. Write down on your paper the answers for these items. Okay. Pause. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, sige. Ano nga yung na-learn natin sa law of demand and then sa law of supply? Okay, let's figure this out. First, here we see that our curve here is upward sloping. Pataas siya. Diba? So number 4, we can see that pumupunta siya sa taas. And then, for number 5, we could see that it is downward sloping. Pailalim siya. So if I were to use an arrow to illustrate this or to trace this, I'm gonna use pink for this one. Right? Pumupunta siya sa taas. Diba? This is the direction where your curve is going. While sa number 5, the direction where your curve is going is downwards. So we know that if the curve is going upwards, this must be a supply curve, right? Which means that for number 4, this would be a supply curve. And then, we know that if the curve is going downwards or downward sloping, then this should be considered a demand curve, which means that number 5 is a demand curve. And we see that from the original demand curve, there have been shifts, right? So for the supply curve, there has been a shift to the right from the original demand curve to B. And then for the demand curve on number 5, there has been a shift to the left. And for shifts to the right, supply has increased, right? increase, there has been an increase in supply or quantity supplied. And then for the demand, there has been a decrease in the quantity demanded. And always remember this, that if it's a shift to the left, there is a decrease, whether it's supply or demand. And if it's a shift to the right, there's always an increase, whether it's supply and demand. I hope you got this. If gets na to, the next item would be quite easy for you as well. So let's look at number 6 and 7 here. You are given two curves as well. And again, same idea as number 4 and 5. Figure out if these are demand or supply curves. Okay, so again, we're just trying to increase your familiarity with the curves here. For the ones who are sinasabi na teacher, this is too easy. Again, we're just trying to make sure that you're comfortable with this. Because again, this is not gonna be the last we will see about these items. Mag-build tayo sa concepts na ganito. Okay, so eto. Okay, pause the video. I'm gonna give you 10 seconds to figure this out. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So let's look at this. Again, just trace. Use an arrow, right? To figure out if it's downward or upward sloping. Number 6, that's a upward sloping curve. And then on number 7, that's a downward sloping curve. Which means that for number 6, this is gonna be a demand curve. And we could see that from the original demand curve, there has been a shift, but the shift is to the left, which means that there has been a decrease in the quantity demanded. And for our number 7, you can see that this is a... Wait lang. Sorry guys, I'm so sorry. This is a supply curve. This is upward sloping. Ayun. Okay. Yeah. Don't get confused. So this is a supply curve, and yan, it's quite confusing, as you can see, diba? Basta just make sure that you stay calm and focused. So look at this. This is a supply curve because again it's upward sloping, and then for number 7, this is a demand curve because this is a downward sloping curve. And you could see that the original demand curve has shifted to the right. Right, sige. So, ayun. Pag titingnan natin, di ba? Ilalagay natin dito sa gilid. There has been a shift to the right, to the left here. And then there has been a shift to the right here. Right. Ayan. Sige. So, okay. So, that's the foundation. Yun lang yung foundation muna natin. That's the first, yung mga pinaka-basic natin na dapat matutunan. Okay, sige. So, number 8. We are given 4 graphs here already. Okay. Familiarize na tayo. What we're gonna try to figure out is try to understand what happens in a particular situation that has been given to you. So, dito, which of the following best describes a shift in demand given an increase in income? So, first thing, if you try to figure this out step by step, figure out which are the demand curves among the options given. And then, you can see that the following thing that you have to do is figure out what would show an increase, right, in demand. So, eto, diba? Figure out first kung ano yung demand curves dito. And then, tingnan nyo kung ano yung which shows the increase, right? So, if we're looking at it, make sure that it's shifting to the right. Okay, so, A, B, C, and D. Hanapin yung mga demand curves dyan. And then, yung shift to the right. Go ahead. 10 seconds. Or pause the video if you want more time. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, obviously, our demand curves are the ones that are downward sloping. So, ano yung downward sloping dito? B and D are our downward sloping curves here. You can see the direction ganito, right? If you put an arrow, that's the direction that they're going from or to. But another condition is that this should show an increase in income. So if we look at B, guys, from the original demand curve, it shifted to A. This is a shift to the left, therefore this shows decrease. While if you look at D, this is a shift to the right, which means that it will show an increase. Therefore, the correct answer for this one would be, syempre, letter D. Yan. Okay. Letter D is the correct answer. Okay, next. Number 9. Which of the following best describes a shift in supply of cake given a shortage of flour? Okay, so we're asked to figure out which of the following choices here shows supply curves. And another condition is that look for the graphs which shows what happens to cake given naubusan na ng flour, which is an ingredient for cake. So figure this out. I'm gonna give you 10 seconds, or again, you can pause the video. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Kapag tuso kayo, alam nyo na yung B and D, hindi na pwede to kasi demand curve sila. Therefore, A and C are your two options. So you can see upward sloping curves here, but here nakalagay supply of cake given a shortage of flour, which means that your inputs has decreased, diba? You're gonna create less cakes given that you have a decrease in your ingredients for the creation of cakes. So it means that you're gonna shift to the left for this particular situation, right? Given the two choices here, A shows a shift to the right, which means that it illustrates an increase, while C shows a shift to the left, which means that it illustrates a decrease. Therefore, C is the correct answer for this one. Hope you got this. Okay, so number 8 and 9, medyo basic sila, right? Let's try to have more more realistic examples. Okay, so number 10. For this one, instead of giving choices, you're supposed to construct the supply curves on your own. Okay, so let's look at this particular situation. For this one, since kayo na yung magko-construct, I'm gonna give you more time to do this. I'm gonna read the example first. PJ's gym offers Muay Thai and Taekwondo classes, and they only have 2 coaches who teach us both types of martial arts. Illustrate the supply of Muay Thai classes when more people prefer Taekwondo instead of Muay Thai. Again, you have 2 products being supplied by the gym, right? And these 2 products supplied are dependent on each other because you only have 2 instructors. So, ano daw yung mangyayari sa supply ng ating Muay Thai classes given that more people have a preference for Taekwondo classes in this particular situation? So illustrate or show the situation by illustrating a supply curve, specifically a shift of your supply curve. Okay, and make sure that you label your graph or your diagram as well. So please pause the video, or you can also, paki-pause lang yung video for now. Work on this item first. And I'm gonna count down for the ones who are eager to finish this. So, I'm gonna count down 30, 29, 28, 27, 26, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.5, 2, 1.5, 1, 0.5, 0.3, 0.009, 0. Okay, sige. So, again, what we need to do is we always need to make sure that our graphs are properly labeled. Okay, yan. Okay, so I'm gonna construct my graph. Right? And always remember that when you're constructing your graph, P is always on the y-axis, your price is always here, and then your quantity is always on the x-axis. And we're gonna create our original supply curve. So this is our supply curve for Muay Thai. Lagyan natin ng label. Original supply curve for Muay Thai. Muay Thai classes. Okay. And then, what happens daw, or what would be the case if more people prefer Taekwondo classes instead of Muay Thai classes? So this would be illustrated by a shift. Specifically, it would be a shift to the left. There has been a decrease in the supply of Muay Thai classes, again, because more people have a preference for Taekwondo classes. So let's construct our, ayan. If you're illustrating a shift, it's also a good idea to put an arrow para hindi tayo maligaw. And then let's use red for our new supply curve. Okay. And makikita natin, di ba? Yan. So this is our new supply curve. And this is the supply curve after gym offers more Taekwondo classes instead of Muay Thai. Okay, offers less Muay Thai classes. Ayan na lang. Because there has been a decrease or increase in the demand for Taekwondo classes. Ayan, so this is ano. And again, makikita natin, di ba, yung dati, sabihin natin, the price of our, the price of our Muay Thai classes is 1,500 for 1 month. Okay, this is per session. Okay, if we try to construct, or if anahin natin to, yan, lalagyan natin ng connections dito. Makikita natin, it will show a decrease in the quantity of people, or the quantity supplied of Muay Thai classes. So sabihin natin, dati, with a gym membership of 1,500 per month, they are serving around 10 people for Muay Thai. Nagiging 5 people na, diba? You can see this illustrated clearly in your supply curves, because as you can see, diba, nakikita natin yung pagbabago ng quantity supplied natin given the two demand curves. And this is the case for all price levels. Okay, ayan. So, hope you understand that. Okay, next, 11. Let's look at 12 na lang. Russia and Saudi Arabia are both oil-producing countries. When COVID-19 hit, they had to decrease their production of oil because there was decreased demand for oil. Illustrate the shift in supply for oil of Russia and Saudi Arabia through a graph. So this is an actual real thing that happened. Russia and Saudi Arabia had to figure out which of either country, nag-discuss sila sino dapat magbaba ng supply ng oil. Kasi nga, or mag-decrease ng production ng oil. Kasi nga, di ba, bumaba yung demand for oil during COVID-19. There's less transportation, businesses have been closing, so there's less on demand for energy. Right? So, anyways, let's try to figure out what happened to supply of the oil using or illustrating our supply curve. Okay, so go ahead, pause the video, or you can also, if you're fast and if you get the concepts, pwede ding diretso na lang. So, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, sige. Let's construct the graph. Ayan. You have your x-axis and y-axis. You have your curves or your axes properly labeled. Price and then quantity. Here. And then you construct your supply curve. Make sure that it's upward sloping. So I'm going to use blue for this one. Or pink. Yeah, ayan. May upward sloping supply curve. And then, again, this shows a decrease in the supply of oil. So, if you want to be quick about it, a decrease in the supply of oil would be illustrated by a shift to the left. Right, ayan. So, it's a shift to the left. Ayan. So, this is my new supply curve. Right, so this is the old supply curve. Oil production before COVID-19 for Russia and Saudi Arabia. And This is supply of oil production. Ayan. Or eto, this would be the supply of oil during COVID-19. This is for Russia and Saudi Arabia. Ayan. So, okay. Okay. Next. Okay, let's have number 11. The government wants to make sure that more students attend K-12 classes, their new flagship program for education. However, public school capacity to accommodate students is limited. They therefore start subsidizing when say subsidy, they financially support schools, specifically private schools, so that tuition will be cheaper. Because tuition will be cheaper, demand goes up, specifically for private school education. Illustrate the supply of private school education the Philippines given government subsidy. What do you think will happen to like people and people wanting to or even private schools, the capacity of private schools, and at the same time yung new private schools wanting to enter the market. Again, yung capacity ng current private schools and at the same time new private schools wanting to enter the market. If the government said na they want to subsidize private schools because overcapacity na sila sa public schools. So again, financially supporting the private schools. This is happening right now, diba? You have your subsidies for education and ayan. So mas naging cheap yung tuition fee natin kasi yung government yung nagbabayad ng part ng tuition fee ninyo. Sige, so again, pause the video or you can also wait for my countdown to finish to figure out the answer. Ayan, so 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, bilis no, 3, 2, 1. Okay, sige. Ayan, we're just gonna construct our price and quantity. Yeah. Price, quantity. Oh, sorry. Ayan. Ayan. So, you might say na, sure, this is too basic. It's supposed to be basic because this is the foundation. Yan, hindi pa to yung point ng ating gagawa. Basically, mga ano lang to, mga building blocks na, ayan, paunang ano pa lang to. And so, next, we'll have our upward sloping supply curve, right? Ayan, upward sloping supply curve. And then, what happens to the supply of private school education given that the government has started supporting the private schools themselves? Okay, so, syempre, it will shift to the right, right? Businesses would want to enter the private education market, right? And at the same time, the current schools, yung ating mga schools ngayon, na private schools, they would want to offer more slots, right, for students to enter or to go to their schools. Right? So we can see here that our supply of private school education would actually go to the right or shift to the right, given that there would be an increase in private school education because of the support that the government has given. So eto yung ating magiging supply curve. Okay. I hope this is understood. For now, make sure you also review yung key concepts natin. Eto talaga yung foundations, guys. So make sure that you figure out demand and supply and the difference between them. Demand, willingness and ability to buy of consumers. Supply, willingness and ability of producers to sell. The law of demand says that if price increases, then quantity demanded decreases, while the law of supply says that if text highlighter, that if price increases, then quantity supplied increases. It's a positive relationship, while for demand, it is a negative or inverse relationship. So also make sure that you know the difference between movements and shifts. So movements in the supply and demand curve, similar lang, you only have one supply or demand curve, and only price is the factor that affects changes in quantity supplied or quantity demanded. In shifts, you can see that you create new demand curves or supply curves shifting to the right or to the left. So, ayan. And the factors that affect shifts in demand, number of buyers, income, consumer preferences, price of related goods such as substitutes and complements, consumer expectations, and occasions and events. And for this one, you have to figure out which particular situation will shift to the right or shift to the left yung demand natin. For factors that affect supply, some of the factors includes the number of sellers, technology, the expectations of producers, taxes, cost of production, subsidies, and so on. So all of this will cause shifts because these again are non-price factors. So please review that. I hope you got this. And again, you can review your book or you can review also your quiz is game. So goodbye everyone and hope you have a good day.